Imagine speaking up about challenges you're having at work, and shortly after that, your own performance comes under scrutiny. Your employer says the performance concerns are legitimate and they have to be addressed. But you can't ignore the timing. You can't ignore who raised the performance concerns or the difference between how your employer handled your complaint and how it handled the concerns raised about you. And you find yourself asking, was the employer addressing a real performance problem? Or did your complaint make you a target? That's the question at the center of the story we're talking about today. And if you stick around until the end, you will understand what employers and courts look at when a performance problem surfaces after an employee complains and how they distinguish legitimate performance and concerns from retaliation. Hi, and welcome to the HR Insider. I'm Harlow Reed, employment lawyer and HR consultant. On this channel, we share real legal cases involving employees who experienced conflict at work and decided to challenge their employer in court. We look at what happened to them, how the employers responded, and what the courts had to say, so you can learn from their experience. The content shared on this channel is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional legal advice. Always consult with a qualified attorney or HR professional for specific guidance tailored to your needs. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Samantha Liedtke graduated from the Austin Police Academy in 2020, but she didn't just graduate, she earned the Honor Cadet Award for outstanding performance in academic fitness. After graduation, Samantha was excited because she became a probationary police officer and began the department's required field training program. She was assigned to complete that training with a team called the Edwards 400, which was a patrol shift that was made up of all male police officers. The supervisors who were responsible for staffing the Edwards 400 patrol shift, they wanted to improve diversity and they believed it needed a female officer. And I couldn't identify why they believed that diversity was an issue, but Samantha was recruited to the shift partly because she was a woman. But just to be clear, Samantha was not selected for the shift without regard to her qualifications. She had just earned the Honor Cadet Award for her performance in academic, fitness, and defensive tactics, and the record indicates that her gender played a role in her recruitment, not that she lacked the qualifications to serve on it. Unfortunately for Samantha, the male officers on the shift knew that her sex had played a role in her selection, and Samantha believed that this influenced how they viewed her qualifications, her accomplishments, and even her overall ability to do the job. Samantha said some of the officers made sexist comments almost daily about women, but specifically about women police officers. Samantha said that officers criticized women's competence, their weight, their appearance, their sexuality, pregnancies, and responsibilities as mothers. She also said several officers repeated an offensive saying that female officers were either the B word or a sexual slur. But it didn't stop there. The comments eventually became personal. One coworker, Officer Michael Coliani, allegedly suggested that Samantha received her Honor Cadet Award because pretty women get easy accolades. Another questioned whether her hormonal birth control was interfering with her ability to build muscle. Samantha also claimed that although her coworkers usually patrolled in pairs, she was sometimes left to patrol alone. Corporal John Stevenson, who was responsible for recruiting Samantha, was the first person that she approached informally about the way her coworkers were behaving. According to Samantha, Stevenson appeared to understand some of her concerns anyway. He had discussed with her the difficulties that women, including his own wife, could encounter while working in a male-dominated field of law enforcement. But the problems didn't end after Samantha raised them with Stevenson. The conflict, it continued and eventually escalated during a late night confrontation in a parking lot. One evening, Samantha saw officers Craig Pruitt and Michael Wilkes outside a smoke shop. They were searching for someone with an outstanding warrant. But Samantha believed they should have been responding to incoming calls from citizens, so she sent them a message telling them to prioritize those calls. The message from Samantha upset and offended them. So later that evening, the two officers asked Samantha to meet them in a parking lot to discuss what they considered disrespectful conduct. According to Samantha, the meeting lasted about 20 minutes. She said the officers berated and intimidated her. Pruitt allegedly told her that she looked forking horrible. According to the record, Wilkes suggested that he and Samantha drop belts, meaning they should remove their police equipment and fight. Pruitt was later reprimanded for threatening Samantha, but there was no record of discipline issued to Wilkes. Later that same night, Samantha responded to an active shooter call. She alleged that Pruitt and Wilkes refused to provide backup in retaliation for their earlier disagreement. But the officers, they both denied retaliating against her. He said they were taking a bathroom break when she requested assistance. And after the parking lot confrontation, Samantha reached out to corporate John Stevenson again. She explained to him that the situation had escalated. Stevenson responded by conducting a mediation involving Samantha, Pruitt, and Wilkes. Samantha described the mediation as one sided and said it ended with the parties agreeing to disagree. Stevenson reportedly took no additional action because he was preparing to retire. He believed his replacement, Sergeant Pamela McBee, could address the conflict. So, after Sergeant McGee started working as the supervisor for the unit, Samantha met with McGee and specifically reported the conduct of Pruitt, Wilkes, and Coliani. But McGee, she didn't investigate or otherwise look into Samantha's concerns because she believed that Stevenson's mediation had resolved the dispute. Then, 6 days after Samantha's meeting with McGee, the focus shifted from Samantha's concerns about her coworkers to the concerns those same coworkers raised with McBee about Samantha. Coliani told McBee that he and other male officers on the shift were concerned that Samantha might file an EEOC or internal affairs complaint against them. And during that same conversation, he claimed that Samantha had created officer safety problems on several occasions. McBee then called Officer Craig Pruitt into her office and asked him to explain those concerns. Poliani and Pruitt identified 4 incidents where they believed Samantha's actions had placed officers at risk. After the meeting, Pruitt sent McBee a text message containing additional information about Samantha's alleged officer safety problems. The very next day, McBee prepared an employee success plan for Samantha. It identified the accusations against her, and it also had areas where she needed to improve. So, this was something that functioned very much like a performance improvement plan. And here's a very important point. McBee, she had essentially copied and pasted Pruitt's allegations that she received into the document that she provided to Samantha into that ESP document. And she only changed a few things. Another interesting point is that the ESP included incidents that extended back several months. 2 of the incidents that were listed had already been addressed by a previous supervisor. This is why how an employer responds to a complaint is so important. McGee did not investigate Samantha's concerns because she believed the previous supervisor's mediation had resolved them. Now, compare that with what happened when Samantha's coworkers raised performance concerns about her. McGee acted quickly, and it raises a fairness question. Why was the previous supervisor's involvement sufficient to close the door on further review of Samantha's concerns, while previously handled incidents involving Samantha were included in a new formal performance plan. That kind of uneven process, it can undermine an employee's confidence that both sides are being evaluated fairly. A few weeks after receiving the ESP, Samantha resigned from the Austin Police Department. And approximately 3 months later, she filed a charge of discrimination with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. After receiving notice of her right to sue, Samantha filed a lawsuit against the city of Austin under Title VII. She brought three primary claims: a sex based hostile work environment claim, a sex discrimination claim, and a retaliation claim. In its defense, the city denied that it had discriminated or retaliated against Samantha. It argued that the ESP resulted from legitimate concerns about her performance and officer safety, not from her sex or the complaints she made about work. The city also argued that the ESP did not materially change the terms or conditions of Samantha's employment. And since Samantha resigned, the city also argued that she had chosen to leave rather than being terminated or forced out. So, one of the central questions before the court was whether the city issued the ESP because of legitimate performance and officer safety concerns, or whether those stated concerns were a cover for retaliation after Samantha complained. The district court agreed with the city and dismissed Samantha's claims at summary judgment. Samantha then appealed the decision, and the Court of Appeals issued a split decision. It upheld the dismissal of Samantha's hostile work environment claim, but the court reversed the dismissal of her sex discrimination and retaliation claims. The court reasoned that too many important facts were disputed for those claims to be decided in the city's favor at summary judgment. So the discrimination and retaliation claims were sent back to the district court for further proceedings. Now, this doesn't mean that Samantha won her case. What it does mean is that she powered through and provided enough evidence for her claims to continue. Well, let's talk about some of the things that a court could consider when a performance problem surfaces after an employee complains. One of the first things they're going to consider is timing, because a performance concern, it doesn't become retaliation just because it comes up after a complaint. But when something like a PIP or a written performance warning follows closely after protected activity, that timing, it can raise serious questions about whether the complaint influenced what happened. Courts are also going to consider where the performance concerns came from. In this case, we saw two coworkers that Samantha had reported accused Samantha of misconduct. But their very involvement created a reason for the employer to conduct a careful and independent review before taking formal action. Also going to look at an employee's earlier performance history. We saw where Samantha had completed field training in the fastest time permitted, and she received accolades. So that contrast between her earlier reviews and the later improvement plan she was given, that gave the court another reason to really examine whether the ESP reflected a genuine change in performance or a change in how her performance was evaluated after she complained. Workplace dynamic I have seen repeatedly is that after an employee reports misconduct, the person accused responds by raising concerns about the employee who complained. And sometimes those concerns are legitimate. The person making the complaint may have performance problems or may have engaged in inappropriate conduct of their own. But a counter complaint can also be an effective way to shift the employer's attention away from the original allegations and place the complainant's conduct under scrutiny instead. That is why employers should not assume that either side is telling the complete story. They have to investigate the original complaint and the concerns raised about the complainant independently, and then determine what the evidence actually supports. If you need more practical support, be sure to check out the workbooks, the training tools, and the compliance resources available on this channel. They will help you better understand your rights. Thanks so much for watching today.
If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
This is Harlow for the HR Insider, real legal cases, real lessons for real people.
I'll see you in the next video.